We are Flake, Rose, and Spears, and we are Supremely Black. How y'all doing this week, fellas?
What's going on? It's your big kinfolk, J Flake. Uh, hey, man, had a good previous week. Can't complain. Can't complain about too much. Did a comedy show. Felt real well about the comedy show. Matter of fact, we get the moment sometimes when I do my thing where people give you compliments where I feel like you can't tell me shit for like the next 24 hours. So I got off stage. I headlined the show, got off stage, and it was a table full of black women. I set up my little recording in the back to record my set. And it was next to this table of black women, all black women. So I walked back there and get it. They was like, J Flake, J Flake. I said, what's up? Like, look, let me tell you something. I'm finna walk up to the promoter and tell him, if you ain't on the next show, I want a refund. I want all my money back. She's like, I don't know where you been hiding at, but you so funny that I got to know when your next show is. Man, everybody, and she was like, she said, I didn't laugh at no other comedian except you all night long. That made me feel so good. I like, man, you can't tell. I told my wife, my guy, you can't tell me shit for the next 48 hours. I don't want to hear no back talk. I don't hear nothing. So, man, it made me feel good, bro.
Salute. What spot was you at?
Nashville City Winery.
Oh, okay. Bet.
Yeah. Down on the big boy stage.
Okay, bet. But yeah, man, it's D Rose. It's been a super cool week. I can't complain. Just super sore. I actually picked up a trainer to get ready for this half marathon in May. But let me say this: I haven't did squats since I was getting kicked out for the basketball and football team when I was in high school. So I got muscles hurting. I ain't even know I had no more. So boy, it's been a rough one. Besides that, everything's straight though. Just trying to get prepped and ready for this May half marathon.
That boy walking down the steps sideways.
Bro, tiptoeing. They even want to give me one of them little motorized little stoves in the little station thing.
You already registered, Rose?
I don't think I had talked to Yancey and Woods, and I want them to create a medal for it because I'd rather give them the bread than to have that BMW. But I think I'm going to because I end up seeing that they got the jackets and the shirt to come with it, and them John's fed. So I think I might go ahead and sign up. It's like 120, I think, though.
No, it's like 150, 143 to be exact, I think. Yeah, that's why I asked if you registered. I ain't registered yet, but I'll probably register first week of April. Last week.
Yeah, we gonna put that to the side because I didn't know it was 150. I thought it was like 150.
Yeah, it's 150. So I ain't registered yet, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and probably knock that out at the end of the month and stuff. Yeah. But my week been good. Ain't too much really done happened. Just consistently been trying to do the things that I need to do or whatnot, and just like you said, trying to get prepared and ready for the half marathon coming up in May. Other than that, just been a chill, smooth week. Been chilling with my children and kids and all that other stuff, and everything been good. So ain't no complaints. So this week we're gonna pop it off with a very, how should I put it? It's something that is historical, educational, something that you could be proud about, but also something that pisses you off. So I don't know how many people know about it because I didn't know about too much about them until Flake brought this topic up for our episode. And so we're talking about the Harlem HellFighters, the 369th Regiment, all Black regiment of World War I. And again, they was derived from Harlem or New York, however you want to put it, but their nickname was the Harlem HellFighters. And so that's what we're going to discuss this week. Flake, I'm going to let you pop it off because this was your idea in your episode, basically. So I'm going to let you pop it off and you start where you want to start at because there is no shortage of conversational points to discuss about this. And so wherever you want to go, we'll take your lead, and then we'll follow and discuss on the points that, you know, we felt impacted us or whatever we want to talk about as well. But we'll follow your lead on this, Flake.
Yeah, I had seen this and I had discovered it kind of just sitting around and watching it. Every once in a while, I just pull up the History Channel just see what they talk about. If I'm interested in it, I keep watching. If not, I usually just keep on moving. And I had seen this come up about the Harlem HellFighters, which I've heard about, but I never just did a lot of research and dug into. I heard about it like a long time ago, though. And then when you get to listening to their story and how everything happened, it gets real interesting. And what happened was, to give a little bit of background, during World War One, the United States at first was not going to join in due to economic purposes, because we was making a lot of money with a lot of the other countries. So they thought it fit best that we be neutral and sit back. However, with the Germans busting the French up, and the French was like, "Hey, we need some help," but most of our exports was going to the French, so it was like, "Hey, we need to join in because they the bulk of where we making our money at. So let's join in on this." We'll say it's fighting for democracy, but it really wasn't. It was just basically all back the money, as the United States is always about that mighty dollar. So we had jumped in. Come to find out, we was a little short though. We were short on soldiers. They didn't get as many people to sign up because, back in the day, that's where everybody was like, "Hey, when I get done with school, I'm joining the military." That was like the main thing people was doing. So they didn't get enough people to sign up, and so they had said we was gonna do a draft. So with that draft, once again, didn't get as many people they thought they was gonna sign up. So they started including the black people. However, the crazy part about it is, and you would think when it comes to the military, we wouldn't have any issues because, as one, we fighting for this country at the end of the day. But the Marines didn't accept any black soldiers. The Navy only took in a select few of black soldiers. So that left the National Guard. So the National Guard in New York and the Harlem area was like, "Hey, we'll take any black soldier want to come sign up." So a lot of black soldiers came, they signed up. They even had some that came from the South and came up to Harlem to sign up to join the draft. And the main reason for that, because in their mind they was thinking, you know, when we do this, when we come back, we're gonna be symbolized as heroes, and they can see I'm fighting side by side with everybody else, and black people, black men can be treated different how we supposed to be treated. Because you gotta think about it, this was during Jim Crow era. Yeah, this was way past slavery. This Jim Crow era, so black people still not getting treated the same. We still being treated as three-fifths. We still being lynched and all that going on. So it's enough strength in the man alone, in the men alone, but the fact that you being treated as dirty as you are and still want to go and join and fight for this country and hopefully come back, uh, you can get your freedom or whatnot. So my first question, well, we have freedom somewhat, let me say that, but get treated like everybody else, like everybody else get treated. So my first question for you guys, just knowing back then how the treatment that black people was going through, and that this war was anything that was affecting you in general, affecting you on a daily basis. Could y'all be as strong as those men to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and fight for this country that has me over here, even though my brothers in the South are still being lynched, even though, because we give a lot of pass to the North, but to be honest with you, they was treating black people wrong too at the end of the day, and them people in Harlem, they was getting treated wrong as well. Just prime example for y'all get that answer. Um, they had a parade to send the soldiers off after everybody had signed up. Guess who wasn't a part of that parade? None of the black soldiers was a part of that parade on the send off. So my question, you guys, just knowing what was going on within the time in that World War One time, early 1900s, would you be able to leave your family and go across that pond and fight for a country that basically didn't love you at the time?
You gonna go, Rose?
No, go ahead.
At that time, I think I would, but for the same reasons why when you do the research and you hear the story, whatever, that they did it, because you would think that when you go and do that and they see the representation, they see that you are not 3/5 of anything, that you are 100% man, that you are as qualified or overqualified or even superior to them in certain aspects of fighting and resilience and uh, just just the turmoil that you put your body through on a regular because you come from the South of slavery and being in them cotton fields or toiling the dirt and the earth or whatnot, building railroads or whatever part that you had to do, sugar cane field, whatever part of plantation you was, but being a slave, getting whipped, barely eating and surviving in that environment. I think that for me to go and to show them that we are just as good or if not better than you, then coming back, I will get my due diligence, I will get my equity, I will get my equality, I will get my liberty, I will get my freedom. So I think that I would have went hoping in hope that, yeah, I would have got it. And then, well, I'm gonna keep that bit, but when you know what happened when they joined the French, like you would think that, okay, coming back and how whatever, that things would be what they hoped them to be. So I would have.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. But for me, I mean, I know with the draft, I guess you have to go. I mean, would you go to prison or something like that if you didn't go back in the day? Wasn't it something like that?
Yeah, if
Well,
it was a situation where you had to go, it was from all men from 18 to 30. Even if you was over 30, you could sign up, but the draft was pretty much like a selection. If you didn't go, yeah, you could go to jail. I don't know exactly what the rules were back then, but I know now if something happened tomorrow, they have one and you decide not to go. If you have some major injury, you'll go to jail or whatnot.
Yeah.
well, I know back then in the 20s, they was murdering you. So if you didn't go and you was black, they was murdering you. But if you like in the 60s, like during Muhammad Ali, like and later on, if you didn't go, you were serving jail time or facing, a fine or something like that, real something that would take you away, but they wasn't on the murdering no more. But back in the 1919s and or the teens, the 19 teens and all of that stuff, and the early 20s, they was murdering.
Yeah. Well, just appreciate that information, but yeah, I'd have been dead because I couldn't have went and fought in that war, honestly, because I just kind of feel like, even though I agree where you're coming from and your stance of doing it, but just knowing that they had to depend on us and still didn't want to respect us as, just as human as they were, and seeing us from an equal point of view would make me still stay with my stance and not going to fight for a country that wouldn't fight for me, and just respecting us as a group of people that just is human and not animals or 3/5. So if the punishment would have been death, it looks like for me in that particular instance, I would have chose you to kill me before I go fight, pretty much living dead anyway. And I won't go too much into it because I'm pretty sure you have some other questions. But yeah, it'd have been murder she wrote for me. What would be your stance though, Flake? Could you have done it? Would you?
I probably would have. I probably would have fought due to the simple fact that, like I said, a lot of those brothers had joined together and talked, and they were saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this for the freedom of everybody else." So, I mean, if I'm going into it with the understanding that my family could um, get treated better by me going over and doing this and fighting and coming back home, or the simple fact, now I left this part out, they promised them certain benefits as well before leaving. So they promised them a certain amount of benefits they could get for joining, and they never received them once they got back. So they got declined a bunch of stuff once they got back. But I guess when you look at it like, if I can go and do this, even if I die over there fighting, and they're saying I'm supposed to get, this benefit, that benefit. My family could live better. My family could be treated like they're supposed to be treated. In your mind, I guess I probably would have, considering that, during that time, you thinking they gonna stick with their promise because they needed us to fight. They needed black soldiers at that time. And then, with that, I probably would have, to be honest with you. Also, with that being said, go ahead, Spears.
No, I was just gonna say another influence for a lot of the black soldiers was W.B. Du Bois, and what he wrote in his article and everything, and how he thought. And since he was such an intellect, a graduate from Harvard or whatnot, and he created the NAACP and all of that, people really listened to his words and his influence that he had. So when he wrote the article, thinking the logic that, okay, we go and do this, we'll get better treatment when we come back. A lot of them soldiers, that's why a lot of them soldiers signed up, just because of his thought process and his logic and ideology of what would happen. And again, some of it comes from the promises that were broken and that they promised us, but some of it also just came from just the logic and, you trying to put 2 + 2 together and make it 4, but America gonna say, nah, 2 + 2 is 3, and you one short. So that's part of the reason as well why a lot of them black kings and brothers did what they did. And so I just wanted to drop.
Yeah, and I think that was interesting. That was an interesting point when I had seen W. Du Bois had pretty much, he was the leading catalyst behind them, pretty much syncing up to do it. But I really wish they would have expounded more on what was his thoughts behind that. Like, was he just going solely off of the promises that they had made? And so, like, hey, I think this would be better if we all join together and y'all go fight this war, because I just don't know what made him have that stance to just think that it would inspire change if we haven't seen it yet. So I really wish they could have went in a little more in regards to what was his real take on it.
Yeah, I think it was just that him being a Harvard graduate and, he probably experienced a little something different with his level of intellect and been able to shake hands with different people with his smarts or whatnot. And then the simple fact that promises on top of that was being made, that we can show that we are equal. And then y'all put these promises on top of it. Then you got somebody like me, W.B. Du Bois, that at a certain higher level, and they see that we are just as smart and we can fight as well. So I think this might be where I can't, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's where he might have been coming from on that one. I want to see how you guys feel about the fact that they got everybody signed up, pretty much told them the lies had started like ASAP. They pretty much told them, we're gonna have you join, you're gonna be combat, you're gonna be fighting, and then soon as we get over there, they got us. No, we're not fighting. We don't even have guns. They didn't give them guns at first. No guns. Had to wear different uniforms, and basically we over there building roads, stacking up bullets, retrieving bullets, cleaning up. We digging trenches. We're pretty much the cleanup crew. We pretty much doing the manual labor and getting the trenches and everything together. And basically they telling us, well, you here, but you ain't fighting. And then on top of that, they said, well, the French said, well, let us get some of your soldiers, not the black soldiers, say anybody. They told them all of our soldiers will fight under the United States flag. Except them niggas, y'all can have them. So how did y'all feel about that? I mean, because they gave us the promises and they the lies immediately started happening as soon as we landed over
there. Yeah, with that, that just kind of goes back to my point. I wish we could give more, so we might have to circle back and touch on that. But it was disheartening. And that was the part that I was talking about earlier before we started recording it. It got me fired up because it was thinking that, them people had pretty much putting everything on the line and risking for a country that had really no use. And basically how even though they didn't have the numbers to even fill a war, the people that, you know, us that, you know, the Black people that went over there, for them basically just to be servants of them, like prepping for war and cleaning up for them in the trenches. You're pretty much a part of us. You can pretty much do everything that we're doing, but fight. But who wants to go be a cleanup person in a war? You feel me? Like I only have a gun, so if I get caught and killed, pretty much you're just telling me I could be killed off at your protection. And so if we get bombed or killed, it's okay, well, we know those Black people's over there. You know what I'm saying? So that was distasteful for one. And I won't get into the other part because I kind of feel like you got another question that's going to set up with that. But shout out to the country that had brought them over, because the message that they had for that country that wanted them just lets me know we've always had that power. Like we said last week, we always had that juice. It's just they've always wanted to stop it. So we'll get to that though. Yeah. What's your thoughts, Spirit?
I was just trying to read on what made him say for them to go into the sign up for World War I. And part of it had to do because Booker T. Washington was just recently murdered. And so he became at that time, the singular civil rights activist leader of that time. And he was the most prominent after Booker T. Washington died. And then he also thought that African-American soldiers seemed a likely way to gain leverage for reshaping post-war American society by several factors obstructed this. So he thought that if African Americans, gained titles in the military, gained, trades or skill sets or whatnot, it would help them elevate in the post-American war society once they got back. But that wasn't true. So that was his logic in writing that letter and telling them that they should go into the war, because he thought, you come back a lieutenant, a captain with some accolades, you come back with some skill sets, you come back as in representing your country and helping your country, be capitalistic, because again, as you said, the war was all about capitalism and making sure that the American dollar kept moving with the trades and exporting goods. And so therefore, for you doing something for your country, along with how they put it at that time, your fellow man, the Caucasian counterpart, that you would get some type of dignity and respect. And so that's why he ended up writing that. So that's what I was just researching. But now go ahead and re-ask your question, Rose, your exact question, Rose.
No, Flake, you on mute. Flake had asked the question.
Oh, I thought you said, how do I feel about that? So what was the exact question?
Yeah, it was basically, what was your thoughts on the simple fact that the lies had started immediately as soon as they had landed overseas in the new land. So basically, they told them, you sign up, you're gonna get the benefits, you're gonna be able to fight side by side. But basically, what happened was we got over there, we pretty much was the band and the cleanup crew. I left that part out. You can play these instruments. You can be our entertainment like they always love us to be. And also you're gonna clean up. You basically gonna work, you're gonna dig these trenches, and you're gonna clean up.
Yeah. So
they ain't even wear the same uniform. Couldn't even have the same uniform.
Yeah. So one thing that pisses me off about it, and like I said, this doesn't leave a lack of emotion or conversational pieces, is that you go from slavery, you sign up for a war to get away from slavery, because like Rose has said, and I think you said too, Flake, some of these people escaped from the South to come fight in the war, to be free. And then you go right back to slavery. They was still segregated because General Pershing and Woodrow Wilson, or whatever the president at that time, still wanted that to be a dominant point and factor in the military. So we make it known that these people aren't our equals. These people still have to live the life that they lived while in America, here in a different country, a country that we don't control or own, but we're gonna make sure amongst our ranks that we still gonna segregate them, that we still gonna treat them as the bottom of the bottom, the lowest of the totem pole, and then we still gonna make them do slave work. So build railroads in a different country, dig trenches in a different country, clean barracks and do all this other stuff in a different country and keep them segregated, but then also not allow them to fight, not give them, the benefits that we told them we was gonna give them, still letting them get the bottom of the food and the rations or whatnot, where they had to ration food off and do all of this while, again, during wartime, you might not be eating like you eat non-war, but others was eating better than them. And they're doing all the grunt work. They're doing all the real work because still at this time, General Pershing did not want to allow none of the troops, especially the white troops, to be under French rule or commanded by French. He literally said, we will fight under American rule, under the American flag, by an American general. So they had troops there, hundreds of thousands, what got to the millions, but he would not allow them to set free or be free. And again, if it wasn't for the commander, I think that was his rank or whatever, the white commander that was a little bit that wasn't racist, basically. That's the only way I
Yeah,
could put it.
he went against the grain for sure.
Yeah,
He fought for a lot of
yeah.
lot.
If it wasn't for him, being close with that French commander or general, whatever he was, and talking some things, and then also going to General Pershing and being in his ear, even though it took a couple of years or whatever to get that to work, they wouldn't have been able to get to the front lines. They wouldn't have been able to not do this, be a slave and be doing jobs of servitude out there in France. So that's how I feel about it.
And I say that the French also once they got over to the French, they was happy to have them. They was like, hey, look, we happy to have y'all. We short. What's so crazy is they wouldn't let us use American rifles. We had to use their equipment. We had to use their helmet. Um, and also they called us the Black Snakes because they had to sew a patch on their uniform just to be identified. Like they didn't give them nothing. It was like, well, you gonna use their equipment, they helmet, your uniform is different. They want to be identified as something. So they was putting patches basically on their shoulders to be identified as we are the Hellfighters, which moved me into something on how they got that name of being the Hellfighters. And it's not all bad news because we had a couple of, basically these two guys were the MVPs of the entire war. We had Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts that was doing the lookout on night shift with the French. And the German was trying to snipe them boys down and they had missed. And as these gangsters in these streets say, well, you should have hit me, because once they start approaching and they start trying to get through their fence, and my boy Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts came through with their thunder. This is about 25 to 30 Germans that was trying to attack, and them boys took care of every last one of them until they retreated. And basically, the one that they ended up being a superhero, I guess, is Henry Johnson because they got the Needham Roberts first and was taking them down. And Henry Johnson they was shooting them, throwing grenades, whatever they could, to get them boys off their back. And this goes back to them not giving us American guns to use. Mr. Johnson had ran out of bullets and accidentally put American which clip in there and jammed the gun. And they seen him taking Needham Johnson, they Needham Roberts or whatever, they was trying to kidnap him and take him. He went through and started gun butting people. And they said he fought with so much rage and he fought with so much, so much rage. And he was out there, he killed, I think he said 4 or 5 people and injured like 15, 16 others. And they retreated. They were scared of him. He fought with so much rage, so much passion that they was afraid of him. And when they went back, they called them boys the Hellfighters. They said, we got hell over across them waters. and there's a story behind Mr. Henry Johnson. But I just say this: I mean, he took 21 wounds in the process. I guess when we got the adrenaline pumping, and I guess you like, I'm not dying here. And he pretty much fought. He was gonna fight to the death, and he fought with so much. He fought with so much energy that he pretty much passed out. After they ran off, he had 21 injuries, and after they ran off, he passed out uh, due to due to injuries and so much energy lost, and stabbing, gun button, shooting, grenades. And Mr. Roberts was not kidnapped. He was laying right beside him. He was able to save his brother. And I think after that, the French was like, "Oh yeah, we giving our respect to these boys. Like these boys is for real."
Yeah, I just want to add the one thing that I didn't like about the rattlesnake thing is, uh, and it goes back to a lot what Rose say when we talk about different things. They still had that slave mentality because that's what they was called by the master, so to speak. Rattlesnakes and everything. So then they use that as a representation of what to call them still when they was as free as they would ever be in their lives. Because as you said, when they joined with the French, the French treated them like brothers for real. Like they didn't see no color, they didn't see no difference. They treated them like they known them all their lives. They said they had great camaraderie. They laughed together, they played together, they cried together, and they was really
They ate the same foods, and they was giving them wine each day.
yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
you out there fighting the war drinking wine, but
Which turned into later coffee, and I forgot the other thing that they said, coffee and something else, because I think they ran out of wine, but coffee and whatever else. But again, that's the one thing that I didn't like about it is that they still had that ownership mentality that they wanted to put a patch on them that represented still being slaves mentally.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the good old the men of bronze. But yeah, it really just for me, I just think it was dope that, once they were put in a position to show that they were equal, you seen how fast one man or a few people could make an entire group of people just kind of fall back, and then they give them a nickname of the HellFighters because then they realize, look, these people are fighting for their life. But I think that's just representation of what it felt like before they went to war, just trying to fight for equal rights and just to be respected. So unfortunately, it had to come at the hands of being a part of a war, a part of a country that could care less about you, but to go somewhere else and be appreciated. And damn near, I know some of them lost their lives, but at what cost, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like you had to do all of that to get respected by another country that you still didn't even get that same respect when you came back to your American soil. So it was just like all of the nicknames and the respect that they got, it's a smack in the face, man, honestly, because you're getting all this respect from different countries. And then another thing that kind of got me, I know it's a little bit off topic, but they had advised, I forgot his name, but they were saying, do not let them know of their power. Like, don't give them any ownership. We want to keep them in this one mindset. So like to Chris's point is they put the labels on them. So it's like a slave mentality that they're in, but we don't want them to come back feeling that they are one and they are equal and you're treating them as human. And I thought that was a huge point because it just goes right back. It's just the brainwashing part of it. You could lose your life, but they never want you to feel that you are still just as equal as they are because of the power that it gives you. So just back to that 3/5 part of it is they know that we had the juice. They knew we were great fighters. And they knew it so much to even at war when we had literally no guns fighting the war, their goal still was to keep us in one mindset, is never let them know of their power. And at any point, strip them from it before they realize their power and unity and start to form something that would overtake a nation. So no matter what, from slavery to war, that's always the goal for evil people. is to strip you of what they know that you have, and it doesn't take long for you to show that. Just like the HellFighters, basically, they knew it. If you put them all together, that's what's gonna come with it.
I mean, they knew because they had accomplished things that other soldiers had not accomplished. We ended up getting the highest reward for the French. A lot of the HellFighters ended up getting the highest reward. The first Americans that ever received a reward like that for the French was black men that were HellFighters. So, like you said, they knew we had the juice.
170 of them.
Yeah, 170 of them had that, and then they knew we had the juice and was like, nah, we can't let them know they got juice like that. We can't let them come back thinking the uppity Negroes. We can't have uppity Negroes when they come back.
Right.
We can't have that. So that's the reason why we will get into some of the treatment they got when they got back. One thing I do want to mention is that these brothers was dominant. They was out there longer than anybody else in war.
Mm-hmm.
We never had anybody get kidnapped, and we never lost ground. I think they said we was out there 120 days, 130 days on the front line, longer than anybody else. So they knew.
And another thing is, the 369th Regiment was the most decorated regiment in all of World War I. And so that's another thing that lets you know our dominance and our greatness. The most decorated in World War I.
So they knew off top. And like we go anywhere, we turn up, and and that's how it is with black folks. When we go anywhere, and we something special, and we always turn up. Prime example, and his last name was Europe. I can't remember his first name. Last name was Europe. He even had a degree in combat, and they would not let him be a lieutenant in the army. But they said he was a great at doing the band. He was a band director, music man, but you can lead this band. You can lead this music group. I ain't never understood why we need a band at war, but they had one, and they, and like I said, entertained the Americans, entertained the French while they was over there, and introduced jazz to those other countries over there. They didn't know anything about jazz, and when they introduced jazz, the French said, "This is the music that's going to take over the world," and they did such a good job that they had. I don't know if you guys seen this part. They was talking about that racist writer in Kentucky. That he will always make these racist comments in all his articles, this, that, and the other. He even wrote in the paper in Kentucky, said the definition for nigga would definitely change once these men come back home.
Yeah, and then they call. I can't think of his name now either. That you said it, but Mr. Europe, they called him the King of Jazz, and he was one of the forefathers of jazz. And I never knew that. When you think about jazz and everything, I never heard of his name. Or also, I'm not that much of a historian, but I do know, some of the forefathers. But I never knew that it went that far back, and that it really derived from a military man or a military artist or composer or whatever you wanted to call him, because he also composed and directed, but then he was also a musician himself. So
yeah, it was dope, man. Because I mean, you don't spend 191 days in the trenches and not have anybody kidnapped. What was it? Not. I mean, there was a lot of soldiers that died, but it's still just the amount of impact that they had was such a small group that wasn't supposed to be in that moment, honestly. Because if they'd had enough people, they would have kept us away from fighting. But to still have that much of an impact to get honored by different countries, I mean, that just shows that's huge. You spend over half a year with limited equipment fighting a war. Like, it speaks for itself.
And even after all that and proving that we do got the juice and that we can do all, and we turn up wherever we go, after even spreading the word of jazz, after all this time on the front line, not losing ground, not even one step, not having anybody kidnapped, and pretty much saving the French by single-handedly on our own. When we get back home, Henry Johnson After his heroic acts, he didn't receive any awards or medals from his own home. It took him. I'm gonna go through when he received this stuff. It took him 75 years to get the Legend of Merit Award. Um, from when he got home, it took 75 years from then. The Legend of Metal Award. It took Bill Clinton to give him a Purple Heart. Now think about this. This was early 1900s. We're talking 1918, 1919, 1920. Bill Clinton was the president that gave him the Purple Heart Award, and then finally, President Barack Obama gave him a Medal of Honor. This man had died in like I want to say it was 1929.
Yeah, 27.
And Barack 27 between 27 and 29. And Barack Obama was the man who finally gave him the highest award you could receive in the military. Almost 100 years later. Almost 100 years later.
What I do want to say though is that is one thing that I am proud about our culture and our people, that we keep the story going. Like, we don't let the story die. Like, when we have somebody who is as great and impactful as that, whether it's word of mouth, whether we write it down, our historians and the people who pass that message along, keep it going and keep it written so the legends never die. And so that's one thing that I am proud of as far as our culture. And then also, I don't know if you want to give them props, but I guess you got to give them. We know so much throughout history, our stories are deleted or not told, but there have been some I forgot the term Killer might call them, some allies or however he terms it, that allowed us to tell certain stories and keep them going and not allow them to die. And so that is one thing I can also commend them for, because a lot of times there are some stories that, they try to keep from the headlines. They try to keep out of the school books and history books. They don't allow us to tell, besides it's just us talking. And we know about, a Nat Turner or Denmark VC or whatever the case may be. A lot of times, those are the stories that we got to tell that they don't put in the history books. But there are some times where there is stuff that is historically tracked and that we have to do our due diligence and research it, but we have access to know of the great kings and queens that stood before us many years before and prior.
That's correct. D-Rose like in deep thought. And I'm kind of swinging this around to also, and we kind of treat our soldiers like this even now, to be honest with you. A lot of them, when they got back home, they didn't receive the medical treatment they deserved. They didn't receive anything that they were supposed to get. Our hero, Henry Johnson, he ended up dying like 10 years later after they got back, because he didn't receive any type of VA assistance from the 21 wounds he suffered. A lot of them came back with mental health issues that they didn't get any help from the and you couldn't go to a call center and work with no such thing. So you had to go, work at a factory or do a little bit of labor work, this, that, and other. And they didn't get any help as far as the injuries go, so they couldn't hold a job, And Henry Johnson, he pretty much died. They didn't pay him the money he was supposed to receive. And this go for all the soldiers. They get paid any money they were supposed to receive when they got back. And Henry Johnson, a sad story, because this man died penniless. When he passed away, he was dead broke. He didn't have any money at all. And they dropped us off. And they pretty much was telling us here in America, which really had me fired and pissed off, is that you proud to wear their uniform because you went over there and fought for this country. They telling these men to take the uniform off. And if they didn't take the uniform off, they was violently beating these men. It's like I went over here and fought for this country. I'm already probably halfway injured. I am injured, or I might got a limp in my walk, or I might got a hand missing, fingers, and y'all gonna beat me because I'm wearing this uniform and you want me to take it off. You come home to a parade Go ahead, Spears. Damn, I was getting fired up.
No, you could go. Because I was just gonna say there was up to 77 lynchings after the World War I, and out of the 77, I think they said 7 or 9 of them was officers or soldiers, Black American soldiers who wouldn't take off the uniform, and they end up lynching and killing.
Right. So they can't even. That's what we was talking before the podcast started. I was just saying, I wish we could have everybody just moved. Hey, if the French are gonna treat us like that, hell, we just all go to France together. We'll learn a whole new language. We'll do every bit of that. We just gonna go over to France because that's just ridiculous. And I'll go over and fight. I'll go and fight for a country you live in that you were scared to go over and fight in. And then you won't get mad at me because I got the uniform on. And then they had a parade when they got back. No, you can't perform in this parade. No, they had a parade over in France, and they told the French that these men can't walk in this parade. Instead, they had us digging graves for the soldiers who had died. And so they're digging graves for them. So, okay, we get home. They have another parade. They deny us the march in that parade. But the white ally we had, the general we had, that talked to him was like, you know what, skip that. We're not finna do these men like that. We gonna have a parade, and he had a parade, and it ended in the heart of Harlem for everybody, their old community, to celebrate them when they got there. They had the music going, they had the jazz playing. Hey, like it was a good time. Like it might have been a good time that day.
Yeah, but the thing that pissed me off about that is when you hear the story and how it was told, that they feared because they seen the Black power, they seen the Black joy, they seen the Black exuberance, and they seen how the structure moves and how we operate, that they had to make sure that they double down on their discrimination and oppression and their brainwashing. So then therefore they knew that we wouldn't get any sense of privilege, any sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Any sense of
privilege, any sense of pride, any sense of entitlement, anything, any sense of courage, anything you got, any sense of self-love that you might have got for yourself because you did something that you probably didn't think you could do, any type of self-empowerment, any type of community empowerment. Yeah. And that was the main part. That was the main part of stripping. Any type of community empowerment. Because they basically said, hey, we had people